Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, which is a little late today because my top priority was reviewing and breaking down the new teaser trailers for Ghost in the Shell, which is finding itself, as I said in my coverage, in a little bit of a Ghostbusters situation where people are very upset about the whitewashing of the lead role. However, 3 members of Section 9, including the head of Section 9, the chief, are going to be played by Asian actors. And we're seeing quite a change in the representation of Asian talent and Asian interests in Hollywood as the Chinese box office becomes so powerful. And to some degree also Japan and South Korea. We knew it would happen eventually, but it's starting to really pick up speed as 2 of our 3 stories today have to do with China and Hollywood. So I think it's a very big deal that Ghost in the Shell has such major roles with Asian actors in it, but we'll see if the Scarlett Johansson casting kills it anyway. That would be quite tragic because I do think it's an important step forward. Also, I've been watching a lot of the new fall TV and I'm seeing a lot of Asian talent on camera as well. So the squeaky wheel is definitely getting some grease. All right, so the first story of the day is about some Asian talent. This is Chinese actress Jing Tian, who is really quickly making the jump to Hollywood. And she's doing it through Legendary Pictures, which is owned by Wanda, the Wanda company out of China, which is a huge player in the Chinese entertainment industry, and we're gonna discuss that. But as for because they actually play into the second story of the day too. But as for Jing Tian, she is going to show up in The Great Wall. She is part of an elite team of female soldiers. That film suffering from some whitewashing controversy. I feel as well. I feel that that's the Matt Damon movie. I think that movie just was the first trailer was not cut representatively of what the actual film is. It's going to have a Chinese and American star, and I think they just cut that trailer, that first trailer, for what they felt was the Western, for Western audiences, and it really backfired. Thanks a lot, Constance Wu. It's very tricky negotiating these things. You want to pull like an Alan Yang at the Emmys, but you don't want to go full SJW and make people like recoil. But anyway, I think The Great Wall is getting unfair treatment, and to some degree Ghost in the Shell. But anyway, Jing Tian will be in The Great Wall. She'll also be in Kong Skull Island, and then she was just cast in Pacific Rim 2. All legendary films. So this is clearly Wanda's influence, and their influence in casting and location, and collaborations, because of course The Great Wall is a collaboration with a lot of Asian talent, Chinese talent, and was actually shot in China. Now, the CEO of Wanda, and Wanda also owns AMC Theaters, by the way, but their CEO is a gentleman named Wang Jianlin, and he is the richest man in China, and that's saying something. But he has been quoted as saying that his goal is to buy Hollywood companies, take their technology and capabilities back to the Chinese film industry. And I think the end of that, or the follow-through of that sentence, is to make Chinese films that can then go back to Hollywood and compete in the global market. That's really what China wants to do. They're the second biggest box office on the globe after the United States, but they are fast approaching becoming the biggest box office on the globe. And many movies, desperately want a Chinese release, and they are very picky about what foreign films they allow into the country and what release dates they get, which pay attention to that. That's going to play into the second story. But anyway, they want 20% of the global box office by 2020 through their theater acquisitions. I think, they've just recently bought another cinema chain. They have AMC, and they also own a number of theaters in China. And so Wang Jianlin dreams big, but it seems like so far he's able to achieve those dreams. He's also a really aggressive guy, which will be discussed in the second story, which we're going to transition to in just a second. But I do want to just, say again, Jing Tian is a big Chinese talent. Now she's coming into Hollywood, and for instance, people are talking about an upcoming Mulan film. With these movies and this kind of introduction to Western audiences, she might be a good candidate to play Mulan potentially when either Sony makes their their movie that they're moving forward with very quickly, or Disney gets around to doing it. If I were Disney, I'd be like, get me Jing Tian's agent on the phone, and does she only work with Wanda through Legendary? So I think that's fascinating. So Wanda's influence will continue to grow even more beyond Legendary, which means they're very much in Universal slate of films, because that's who has a current distribution deal with Legendary. But now they're heading over to Sony with an influx of cash and, I'm sure, influence. What's going to happen? Well, the Wanda company is going to co-finance Sony tentpole movies, including Spider-Man Homecoming. And not only will they co-finance these productions, but they'll help advertise them in China. And I'm sure advocate for them with the Chinese Film Board as to what release date they get, if they even get a release date, etc. And Wanda has the ability to really push a movie in China. They make films, they own movie theaters, they own theme parks. We'll talk about that at the end of this little bit. So they're very well positioned in the marketplace. So what they're going to get out of this is obviously gross participation in the box office and the gross with these big Sony movies, and also I'm sure they'll be able to influence casting, location for these films as well. Now this all came about, and this is what I find really interesting, because Sony's very upset with their current financier, Lone Star. Lone Star was formed in 2005 by a former William Morris agent, and they have a bunch of cash, and they provide it to the studios, and they had a very good deal with Sony. Interestingly enough, Lone Star is not a very highbrow financier. They don't have like a logo in front of a lot of Sony pictures, whereas Rat Pack has a logo in front of almost every Warner Brothers picture, where they provide the financing, and that's Brett Ratner, by the way. And you'll see, I think it's really important when you go to the movies, pay attention to the logos that play in front. They'll either be the studio, they'll be the production company of like the main producer, like for instance, I just watched Miss Peregrine, and Chernin Pictures was in front of it for producer Peter Chernin. And then also you'll probably see a logo for the financier. So you'll really get an idea of how the business is structured. So, and you'll know the players. But Lone Star really upset Sony because they found a way to wiggle out of their commitment to Ghostbusters, and they wouldn't take the $40 million loss that they were supposed to, which meant that Sony had to shoulder way more of the financial loss for Ghostbusters, the new one, than they had planned. That's like also a big thing here. It disperses the loss, so they're not quite so painful when they do happen. You share the good and the bad is the idea with their studios and their financial partners, and Lone Star didn't share the bad. So Sony is now going elsewhere for their money, and they've decided to go to Wanda. It's huge. Also, by the way, in case you aren't aware of this, Styx Entertainment, a new distributor, has a serious amount of Chinese cash as well. I forget the name of the company, but they're trying to move very aggressively into the U.S. market as well. But I said I'd tell you about the Wanda theme park situation, and you might have heard of this, but Wanda has a number of theme parks in China as well, and they're very upset to see Disney move into the space with Shanghai Disneyland, and they've actually just opened their own theme park somewhere in the same vicinity. And it was a really controversial move, and like a real shot across the bow, or even like a direct hit to some degree, or a flesh wound, I guess you could say, when they had both Snow White and Captain America show up at the Wanda theme parks, of course with no blessing from Disney. Now, Disney's pretty lax, they have all those characters in Times Square, but this, is in a very competitive space, and it's in an official space, no less. So Disney was really upset about it, but China wouldn't do anything. So it's interesting, China gets accused a lot of stealing technology and stealing certain things, so I guess people should at least be happy that Wanda wants to outrightly purchase it and do it on the up and up. I guess because they want to have a continued relation. He wants to have a continued relationship, Wang Jianlin, with Hollywood. So fascinating. But Disney has their own situation. We're going to transition over to Disney now. And Bob Iger made headlines yesterday as he tried to manage expectations for Rogue One. He said, I've seen it. I've seen the latest cut. Looks good. But we never thought that it was going to do as well as The Force Awakens at the box office. So you shouldn't either. The Force Awakens, of course, the third most successful film of all time with a $2 billion gross. It's the only movie besides the James Cameron film, Avatar and Titanic, to make $2 billion. And of course, I think it would be very difficult for another film to achieve that, especially because The Force Awakens benefited from being the first post George Lucas Star Wars movie, a return to greatness. Everyone was very curious about it. And some people didn't love it, so you might see a little bit of but some people did, obviously. So you'll be curious to see if people return for Rogue One, etc., etc. But I think that Rogue One is very much a question mark. Bob Iger did point out that interest in the film is as high as The Force Awakens, so they're very excited about that. And World War Z, Frozen, and Suicide Squad are all big hits that were reworked up until the very last minute. And that's what's happening, of course, with Rogue One. So the last minute reshoots, it's not the best headline, but if the movie is great, or if even just like a solid hit, I think things could still turn out very well for Rogue One. It's a little bit of a setback, but it's certainly not out for the count and could still be a very strong contender. I think the biggest problem is that they've had 2 female leads in a row. And not only two female leads in a row, but 2 extremely similar white brunette petite leads in a row. So that's the only thing that I am concerned about, especially because the picture was billed as a team film. That's how it was sold to the fans. And then, as one of you pointed out to me on one of the most recent posters, Felicity Jones is the only one on the poster, and I think her character has come off so far as a little unlikable. So, just rubs you the wrong way. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think that if anything's going to trip up Rogue One, it will be that, not being reworked or being the second picture. I'm also very happy that it's not a story about the Skywalker family, not one of the main episodes, and I'm very excited for what that could bring to the Star Wars universe, and I hope it does feel as different as, again, we've been promised. We were promised an awful lot with this movie, and now Disney has to not only deliver, but deliver something that mainstream fans will like as well. So, there's the hardcore and the mainstream fan bases or moviegoers to please, and that's a difficult balancing act for anyone. But Disney, more often than not, totally pulls it off. So those are the 3 stories of the day. And speaking of problems with casting, I want to double back, whitewashing, changing a male to a female character. These have been real problems that people have had with recent casting decisions that have sometimes felled a movie before it even opened. And the viewer question plays into that. And that's from Habergfeld1, who says, question, and then lots of hand-raising emojis. I have heard you say that you don't like it when family casts other family on a job of a movie together. Basically nepotism. That's the word for it. But is it always bad? And when is it okay? I realized the other day that Courtney B. Vance was Angela Bassett's husband. So I realized that he most likely got the job of Johnny Cochran on American crime story, the People versus O.J. Simpson, from Angela Bassett, who works with Ryan Murphy, the creator of the O.J. Show as well, on American Horror Story, which is also Ryan Murphy's show. He won an Emmy for it and one of the best performances of the year. And then there is Will and Jaden Smith. So my question is, why is it bad that people give their family jobs in Hollywood? When is it bad and when is it okay? Is it only okay if they do a good job? Thanks, and I love your show so much, all the way from Texas. Greetings in Texas, which isn't far compared to some of your other viewers. Bye. Oh, so charming, Herbergefeld one. Very impressive. So as to your question, yes, first of all, I think when someone does do a good job, it certainly helps everyone, feel a little better about it, right? But I think the real issue is, has that person paid their dues? And also, I think a husband and wife is a very different situation than a parent and child. Now, nobody had a problem, for instance, when they the Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith produced Karate Kid, a remake for Jaden, and that film was incredibly successful, and I think was pretty good, and that's why people didn't have a problem with it. But people had a problem, because Will and Jaden Smith, I think the problem there was that they were the only ones working together. People just got sick of seeing them together, and they were like, okay, enough. I think that they missed the point where it's like, okay, you got Jaden on his feet, now he has to strike out on his own. And he got some good attention for The Get Down, and I think that Jaden's career there's still possibilities there, but he should stop working with his family. And I think Will Smith needs to go back to being part of other families, like the Suicide Squad. But so a parent and a child is very different. So I want to explain to you the situation, and again, of course, when you do a good job, that helps. But people like to feel that you've paid your dues. For instance, Ben Stiller felt it was incredibly important for him to pay his dues and to prove that he could be entertaining and make his way on his own. That was crucial, and I think that that's the real test of it. And the thing is that Courtney B. Vance wasn't just sitting there a failed actor. It's tough. It's like people at the Emmys, for instance, were very upset that David Benioff from Game of Thrones kept mentioning his wife Amanda Peet by her full name. Like, it was weird, and people at first were like, "Are you bragging?" But then in the second mention, people were like, "You're trying to get her work," and that was, I think, really embarrassing and not appropriate. But I think the situation with Courtney B. Vance is that he was a very successful actor, just in other venues. Like he was very successful on television and particularly successful in theater. For instance, he'd already won a Tony Award all on his own. So I think there's nothing wrong with Angela Bassett, maybe like at cast parties or something, or Johnny, sorry, I called him Johnny Cochran, or Courtney B. Vance comes to visit Angela Bassett, his wife, on set. That might be the situation there where, oh, hey, I've developed a relationship with Courtney B. Vance through my working with his wife. I'm going to hire him because he fits the role that I need, right? So I think that's really important. And also, he didn't cast him as OJ. He cast him in what was, I think, initially a secondary role. Courtney B. Vance just made it a primary role. Well, actually, he was nominated for lead and actually ended up beating Cuba Goodings Jr. But anyway, Courtney B. Vance, so good on that show. And now he's going to be in the new Mummy movie. So I think that's a really important distinction. Has that person done a lot of work on their own? Are they respectable all on their own? And all their family member did was provide the connection. That's when it's okay. The real problem, though, is when that person's done nothing and they get like a front of the line golden Wonka ticket to like a major role. Not like, it's a little bit like Judd Apatow casting his daughters and everything, right? You're like, what? Like, it's fine when he cast his wife, Leslie Mann, because she had gotten some work. She was in The Cable Guy, for instance, so that wasn't so bad. And also, she's really funny, and also she started getting work, outside of Judd Apatow projects. But the problem with his daughters is that right now he's the only one employing them. And it's just, and he gives them major roles. And it's not like, and also like good roles. It's not like, okay, this is a real challenge. I'm going to really put you through the ringer. I think that's really important. I think that Judd Apatow would have been better off asking someone else to hire his kids and have them come up that way instead of him doing it himself. So that's the tone you want to strike. You want to strike, this person's already talented, they've done the work, and now we're just going to give them a shot because, hey, they were in the room, they were in the editing bay, they were at the party. But the other is, this person has done nothing, they just want to be instantly successful, and we're going to give them a front-of-the-line pass just because of who their parent is, or who their spouse is, or boyfriend, girlfriend, etc. That, I think, is the real issue. So I hope that explains it. I'd be curious to hear how everybody else feels about all kinds of casting and when they have a problem with it and when they don't. For instance, I'm okay with the Ghost in the Shell situation because I feel they've added a lot of diversity to the other roles. So as I said in my coverage, I think they've balanced the social needs of the film with the business needs, and that's very tricky to do. And I would hate to see it fumble. It would be like disliking Ghostbusters because it had one or two female members instead of the going too far of changing all of them to women. And it would be a shame to see it's the Ghostbusters remake stumble for just one or two women, right? That's the kind of the same situation as far as I'm concerned. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. Thank you, Hubergefeld 1. Thank you everybody for tuning in today. Please write down below what you think of Hubergefeld 1's question, and of course the 3 news stories. Anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.